I want you to think about the way you treat yourself when you're selling your coaching. Are you beating yourself up? Are you undermining your own needs? And are you not pouring into yourself while you are building your business and while you are in the sales cycle? So, where did these agreements come from? I'm going to talk about where they came from before I actually talk about the agreements themselves, because I want you to understand the evolution. So, these agreements came from number one, the goals that I set for the business for this year. And we're scaling. We're scaling the business this year. And when we are scaling the business, one of the things that happens is everything that isn't working is also going to scale, right? So you have to intentionally scale the good parts. You have to be very intentional about scaling the things that are working, because what's going to happen is if you're scaling the business, you are also going to scale what isn't working. So you have to be very, very intentional about those steps. So that was the one thing. And then the second reason I decided to make these agreements with myself was because your girl last year had some moments during my launches where I allowed my belief to be shaken, and it impacted me, it impacted my team, and I think it also impacted my results, and I didn't want that anymore. So let me break down what I mean by that. I had launches last year whereby I either didn't play full out. I'm kind of like giving you a hint of what the agreements are, right? But I kind of held myself back a little bit because, I mean, frankly, from fear, and also just if I don't play all out, then I can't get fully disappointed, right? So that's never a good way to think about things. But I definitely, especially earlier in the year, I noticed where that was happening. And then another reason I made these agreements was because my launches were exhausting. They were incredibly, incredibly exhausting. And most of the exhaustion was mental exhaustion. It was me beating myself up. It was me wishing things were going differently. It was me not supporting myself, not pouring into myself, not taking care of myself in a launch. And that's not sustainable. Like, that's not something that can be sustained over time. And listen, the equivalent for you, if you haven't launched yet, is selling, period, right? Like, I want you to think about the way you treat yourself when you're selling your coaching. Are you beating yourself up? Are you undermining your own needs? And are you not pouring into yourself while you are building your business and while you are in the sales cycle? So even though I'm using the term launch, if that term doesn't resonate with you because you haven't launched, launching is just selling in a defined period of time, right? That's all launching is. It's selling in a defined period of time. Obviously, there's different moving parts and things like that, but I just want you to think of, for me, my version of what you're doing is I'm selling, but in a defined window of time with a start date and a stop date, right? But like, it's important. And I wish I had made these agreements with myself when I was selling in an open period, meaning I was selling one-on-one coaching. People could come to me at any time. If I had made these agreements with myself, I would be making even more money than I'm making right now. Here are the two agreements, the two promises, if you will, that I made to myself and that I kept. Because it's one thing to make a promise to yourself, but I kept them. Okay. So here they were. Number one, the first agreement I made with myself was I will play full out and put everything on the table. I am going to play full out, balls to the wall. Is that the right? Listen, I don't always get like these common sayings right. Maybe I didn't say that right, but anyway, I'm going all in. Okay, I'm going all in. I'm not holding anything back. Okay, which on the surface seems like it contradicts what I just said about nourishing, resting, but it doesn't. And I'm going to explain that in just a second, right? So, number one, I'm going to play full out. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to give it my all. And number two, I will have my own back and be proud of myself no matter the outcome. I'm going to have my own back. I'm going to be proud of myself no matter the outcome. Okay, those were the two agreements. They're linked. I'm going to explain how. Okay, so let's go back to number one. I'm going to play full out, full court press. I'm not leaving anything on the table. Okay, that was an agreement I made with myself for this next version of myself. What I noticed was last year in those launches when I was holding back, that actually increased my exhaustion. And obviously, it's going to impact my results, right? But it increased my exhaustion. And here's how, right? Like I stopped myself from going all in. And so what that meant was I stopped myself from going all in on the pre-planning, right? So I didn't go all in on making sure everything was mapped out and everything was planned and all my communication with my team was done and all of my emails were written and like I didn't do any of that because I was like, I mean, I was holding myself back. So then I would go into a launch, into a period of selling during a defined window of time. And I would be not only selling, launching, and doing a launch event of some sort, I would also be planning, writing the emails, doing all the things, doing the sales training, like all of this stuff, right? And so I never had an opportunity to fully hone in and focus just on showing up in the launch. Like let me give you an example. Like I would show up, let's say I'm doing a challenge last year. I would do the challenge day one. Then I would stay up till 1 a.m. writing emails. It was, again, not sustainable, right? Because then I'm in bed. Next morning, I have to do everything, take my daughter to school, do all the things. And then I didn't have the content created for the challenge for that night. So then I'm creating the content for that day, right? I deliver the content and I always showed up. Like that's one thing. I showed up on them calls. Like my challenges were amazing. If you've been to any of my challenges, they're next level. But then I would want to crash after the challenge because I didn't get as much sleep the night before. But nope, I got to write emails. I got to write the emails that are going to go out the next day. Right. And then that also, what that did was my team was now behind because they're like behind me trying to follow. So let me get the email schedule. Let me create the social media content from the emails, like all of these things. And this time, y'all, I decided again, because I made that agreement with myself, I'm going all out. What is the next level version? What does the 7-figure version of myself do? She writes her emails ahead of time. Completely ahead of time. And that is what I did. So what that meant was it took some sacrifice on the front end, but man, I was in my challenge feeling like $1,000,000. I was no longer staying up till ungodly hours. Like I would close down the doors of the Zoom room, have a 5 to 10 minute check-in with my ops manager, Judy, and then I would go to bed. I would go to bed right after that so that I could be fresh for the next day, right? The next level of me does that, right? And that was because of the agreement that I made with myself that I'm playing full out. I'm giving it my all. I'm going to that next version of myself. I'm taking myself there now before I get there in order to get there. So that's what I did. I kept that promise to myself. Are you playing full out? Are you putting it all on the table? And that means not talking yourself out of the things you know you need to do in your business because you're like kicking the can down the road because of discomfort. So That was the first agreement. The second agreement that I made with myself, and it's you'll see when I say it how it's linked to the first agreement. My second agreement, my second promise that I made to myself was I will have my own back and be proud of myself no matter the outcome. I will have my own back and be proud of myself no matter the outcome. Y'all, when I say I am so proud of myself, so proud of myself, I have executed like the CEO I want to be. And of course, there's still room for improvement, but I could see that next version of myself. Like she was here. She was like here, right? And it was so incredible to actually be that person. It felt so good. And I told myself, no matter what the outcome, I am proud because I've played all out. I am going to choose and make the decision to be proud of me. So translate that for yourself. Are you proud of yourself and the work that you are doing, regardless of whether or not someone clicks on your link yet, or whether or not you convert in that sales call yet, right? Like you can, and listen, I work with doctors. We specialize in black and white thinking, right? Like I used to think, but if I'm not getting the result that I want, how can I possibly be proud of myself? I mean, because if I take myself to being proud of myself, isn't that going to impact my ability to troubleshoot? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There were things that I look back and I'm like, oof, that was a mistake. And I'm still proud of myself. That was a decision, an intentional decision I made no matter what. I'm proud of me.